Hello, welcome to Bits and Biology. My name's Liz, and today I'm going to talk about the games that I played in January and February. So across all of January and February, first of all, I had some time off in January, and I have a reduced teaching load this semester, so a little bit more time to play games these days. I had 176 plays total across the 2 months of 87 different games. And the way that came out was in January I had 82 plays of 44 different games, 22 of which were new to me. And in February, 94 plays of 63 different games, 13 of which were new to me. Now, the reason there were so many more games in February, almost 20 more games in February, is I was taking part in 2 gaming challenges. One to play a different game every day of the month, and the other one, which at first I thought was completely crazy, and I probably do a little bit think it was completely crazy, but it was a lot of fun, and that was to play 24 different games in 24 hours on the 24th of February, right? 24, 24, 24. So the top 10 games of January and February, just based on my ratings on Board Game Geek, I'll count back from 10 to 1. I'm not going to talk about all of these games because they're not all relevant to this channel. A few of them are, but we will end up talking about 14 games that I played in January and February. But anyway, the top 10, counting backwards from 10. So at number 10, we have Keystone North America, which is a fun card placement pattern building game. That was new to me. I played that for the first time in January. Number 9, Trekking Through History, which is a really fun set collection game that the whole family loves to play. Le Havre, which is an Uwe Rosenberg game. That was a new one to me just in February, actually. Comes in at number 8 and probably will climb up and up as I play it more. It's really fun. And I'm tickled that my 11-year-old son actually loved it too. He played it for the first time this last weekend. Coming in at number 7, the 2-player game Jaipur, which is another set collection game. Number 6 is Clank Catacombs, which is a deck building game that also mixes in some tile laying. So it builds on Clank, a deck building adventure, by making the board modular. And so very fun, very interesting. Family favorite. At number 5, we have Carcassonne, classic game, tile laying game. At number 4, Terracotta Army. So that was a new one to me and very much enjoyed it. I think we've played it twice now. At number 3, Genotype, a Mendelian genetics game. So I covered that one actually on the channel. Number 2 is Ohanami, which is a really fun card game where you are building 3 sets of cards in numerical order. So not necessarily consecutive, but in numerical order. And there's some rules for placement. It's one of my favorite games to play. And then coming in at number 1 is the card game Lost Cities, which is one of our favorite 2-player games. A little bit cutthroat, but quite fun and plays quickly for us, especially if you have the app that will do the scoring for you, because the scoring actually sometimes can take as long as playing the game. So anyway, that is the top 10 from January and February. And so now I just want to talk about 14 different games that I did play in January and February that are relevant to this channel. So what do I mean by that? They have some sort of a connection to a nature or ecology theme. And so the order in which I'm going to talk about them is sort of in backwards order from lowest rated to highest rated, but take that with a grain of salt because all of these games I really enjoyed. And so I think the lowest one I've rated is 7.5 on Board Game Geek. And so I really enjoy all of these games. Part of the other way I'm presenting them to you is just the ease of taking them off the shelf. So that plays into it a little bit as well. So the first game I want to talk about is Trek 12 Himalaya. This is a roll and write game by Bruno Catala and Corentin Lebras. And the artists, I'm probably going to butcher these names, Olivier Derriteau and Jonathan Ocamp. And this is published by Pandasaurus Games, and it came out in 2020. This was a new game to me in February. Really fun roll and write game. Very fast to teach, plays in about 15 to 30 minutes. And in here you're rolling 2 6-sided dice, determining a value by either adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, and you're limited to how many times you can do each of those. There's rules, of course, for how you can place the numbers and how you score them. Anyway, plays really quickly. It's a fun little puzzle. So that is Trek 12 Himalaya. The next game I want to talk about is Tussie Mussie. This is a little small card game designed by Elizabeth Hargrave with artwork by Beth Sobel and published by Button Shy Games. So this is a game of, the base game is 18 cards, and then it has an add-on to be able to play it solo. One of the most stunning things about this game is the artwork, which is beautiful, and each card has a different flower pictured on it. And in this game, this is an I Split You Choose game with set collection. And what it is on your turn, you draw 2 cards, and you offer those 2 cards to your opponent. One will be face down, and one will be face up. And they will choose one of those cards to put into their bouquet of what will eventually be 4 flowers, and you take the other one into your bouquet. And so you take turns doing that until you each have 4 cards, and then you score according to the scoring conditions on the cards. Plays really quickly. Probably a game can take about 15 minutes. Tussie Mussie by Elizabeth Hargrave. That was published in 2019. Next up is one of my favorite little card games, and this is Enchanted Plumes. Ends up on this channel because it has the theme of peacocks. It is the theme could be really anything, but it is quite a beautiful game. The cards are gorgeous. And what you are ostensibly doing is to build what are inverted triangles of cards representing peacocks' tails. And the premise of the game is you're building these magnificent peacock tails to attract the peahen, which has a little bit of grounding in reality because it turns out that peahens base some of their choice on the number of spots on the tails, the male's tails. And so each of your cards has a feather with an eye spot on it, and in several different colors, numbered, I believe it's 1 through 9, and which numbers you use depends on the number of players. So the way that the inverted triangles work is the top row will be negative points, and all of the cards below that will be positive points, and if you manage to complete, these are called plumes, these peacock tails, if you manage to complete a plume all the way down to the bottom row that just has 1 card, you will get a bonus equal to the number of cards in that plume. Really fun, relatively quick set collection game. Pretty thinky, actually. Thinkier than you might give it credit for. And this one really flew under the radar. This is by Brendan Hansen. I'm not actually sure who did the artwork. And it does not say. Let's see if it says in the rule book. Illustrations by Echo Chernick. I'm probably saying that wrong. Game design by Brendan Hansen. This is published by Calliope Games. And I have my solo rules in here. So it doesn't come with solo rules, but you can find those on Board Game Geek. And I think that they are officially recognized by the publisher, even though they don't come in the rule book. But Enchanted Plumes, this one really flew under the radar. It's one of my favorite little card games. Relatively quick playing, easy on the eyes. Artwork's quite nice. All right, next up we have Photosynthesis. So now we've had some really small ones. Now we'll get the biggest one of the group. And this is has stunning table presence. This is a beautiful area majority game, so a little bit cutthroat, this one, that was designed by, oh dear, I'm not going to pronounce this right, Hjalmar Hotch, probably did not pronounce that right. Artwork by Sabrina Miramon was the artist, and published by, in the United States at least, by Blue Orange Games. So this, like I said, is an area majority game with just stunning table presence, where you are trying to work your way towards the center of the board by growing your trees up from seeds. and then harvesting those trees once they get large enough. And that's where you get your points from, is from harvesting those trees. Really fun game, definitely a little cutthroat, definitely very thinky, not an incredibly light game. There's not a lot of rules, but definitely takes a lot of brain power. Next up is Bärenpark. So this is a game by Phil Walker Harding and published by Lookout Games, and the artist Clemens Franz. So this is a tile laying game where you are building a bear park, Bärenpark, and with various rules and scoring conditions, and really fun sort of family weight game, kind of what Phil Walker Harding is best known for. Really fun game. Plays in about 30 to 45 minutes and was published in 2017. Next up, we have one that was new to me in January, and that is Canopy. If I can find it. Here it is, blending right in. So this is a Push Your Luck set collection game that was published in 2021. Designed by Tim Eisner and with artwork by Vincent Dutray, and you can, his signature artwork, it's quite beautiful. The artwork in this game is just gorgeous, and published by Weird City Games. So I really like, the mechanism that I like the best in this game is where you have 3 sets of cards, and on your turn you get to choose one of those piles, and the way that works is you look at, they're all face down, all 3 of them. You look at the cards in the first pile and decide whether you want to keep them. If you don't want to keep them, you put them back face down. You can't go back to them now. You're going to add a card from the deck to those, go on to the next set of cards, look at those, decide whether or not you want to keep them. If you don't, you do the same thing again. You put them face down, you add a card to that pile. You can't go back to those now. Now you look at the third set of cards and see if you want to keep those. And if you do want to keep them, you add them to your player area in front of you. So you are building trees and collecting sets of plants and animals. But again, if you don't want those cards, you put them back face down, add a card to them. At that point, if you haven't taken any of those 3 piles, you would just draw a card off of the deck and you get it sight unseen, you get what you get. And it's a little bit chancy there. Just really fun game. So you're building trees. It gets its name from the canopy that tops your tree. And like I said, the artwork here is just gorgeous. It's played over, I think it's 3 rounds. 3 rounds, plays in, what does it say, about 30 minutes? That sounds about right. About 30 minutes. Push Your Luck and set collection. The next game I want to talk about is the game that actually kicked off this channel. So this was the video I uploaded on Darwin's birthday, February 12th, and that was on the origin of species. This is a game by Gerard Asensi and Ferran Renalius, with artwork by Amelia Sales and Javier Carrascosa. It was published in 2019 by Artana Games, and I believe Artana Games is now owned by Genius Games, so part of that whole family. And I was pleasantly surprised by this game. I bought it based entirely on the cover. Very shallow gaming decision. Definitely just knew that I wanted this. But I was quite surprised at the level of strategic planning that is required to do well in this game. Now, actually, there are 3 variants in the box. There's the standard variant, there's a family variant, and there's the advanced variant. For experienced gamers, I totally recommend even just starting with the advanced variant, because that is going to give you a little bit more to chew on as you play the game. But anyway, this is a tile placement game. The artwork is beautiful. If you happen to have a copy of Voyage of the Beagle handy when you're playing this, there are dates on the board. The time track is you're following Darwin's journey through the Galapagos, and the boat stops at several of the different islands, and there'll be a date on the circle for when Charles Darwin stopped at those islands. So you can read in the book what he was doing at that point. It's kind of fun. Okay, on the origin of species. Next up is Waypoints. This is Okay, so it's a bit of a stretch, but it's got a nature theme. This is just a print and play that I backed on Kickstarter. I think it's right around $5 US. And here you're just rolling a die and then advancing along each of these 4 tracks here. As you roll the die, you'll circle a number that tells you how far you can move on the map here. And it actually, for a roll and write, a really simple roll and write, it does a pretty good job of capturing sort of this feeling of hiking through the wilderness. You're viewing animals, taking pictures of animals, kayaking down rivers, climbing mountains, making camp and settling down for the night at the end of each of these tracks. You have to keep track of your water. Anyway, it's just a really fun little roll and write. I pretty much only play this one solo, but if I have a few minutes and I feel like a game, this is an easy one to pull out. So this is a game by, of course, it doesn't say on here, I can't remember. The publisher is Postmark Games, but I can't remember who designed it, so let's look that up. Oh, of course, how can I forget? It was designed by Matthew Dunstan and Rory Muldoon. So Matthew Dunstan has designed several roll and writes that have been published by Postmark Games. I think he might have started the company. I don't know. I'm kind of making that up, but just going off memory. The artist was Rory Muldoon, and this was published just last year in 2023. So Waypoints. Next game I want to talk about is Keystone North America. This is currently a favorite of mine. This was new to me in January. I think Waypoints was new to me in January too. I didn't write that down, but I'm pretty sure it was new to me in January. But Keystone North America was definitely new to me in January. Where is that? Right here. This is kind of like a tile laying game. It's a card laying game with pattern building built into it, where you are trying to create ecosystems of animals. Basically, you're arranging cards in ascending or descending consecutive order with matching symbols. Right? That's the premise of it, and you'll score based on keystone species in your habitat, whether or not you've researched those species, and whether or not you have fulfilled an objective card. So really fun game. This is designed by Jeffrey Joyce and Isaac Vega. And artwork was 4 different artists, if I remember correctly. I'm probably just spilled everything. Let's see. Illustrations. Oh, I'm going to mispronounce at least one of these. Irem Erbelish, Alyssa Menold, Jan Tamba, and Patricia Casarubios. They did the illustrations. The art here is stunning on all of the cards. This is a very thinky game, but very relaxing to play. I credit that entirely to the artwork. And it's very satisfying to make those patterns in the cards. You're making a 4x4 grid. Patterns in the cards to build your ecosystems. Okay, next up we have Birdwatcher. Here it is. So this is a game by Zakir Jaffrey with art by Lauren Helton and published by Renegade Games. I forgot to say Keystone North America was published by Rose Gauntlet. Rose Gauntlet Entertainment. I think it was their first game. Just turn that around. And then Birdwatcher was published by Renegade Game Studios. This one came out in 2022 and is a push your luck set collection game where you are a photographer who is trying to lure birds of paradise out into the open so you can take photographs of them. But when you do, apparently your camera is very loud, so you scare. For every bird you get a picture of, you scare one back into the jungle. Well, not quite the jungle, into the clearing. And really fun set collection game. A beautiful artwork. The artwork in this game is just amazing. Okay, next up, Caldera Park. Where is it? Here it is. This is a game designed by Wolfgang Kramer, I'm not sure, and Michael Kiesling, and with artwork by Annika Heller, and published by Pegasus Spiel. And this came out in 2022. This is a tile laying game, and this is another one of those games I pretty much bought completely based on the cover. I used to work in Yellowstone National Park, and I can tell that this hot springs here was inspired by the Grand Prismatic Spring, which is the largest hot springs in Yellowstone National Park, and Yellowstone National Park sits on top of a large caldera, 3 of them actually, but one of them is really quite big. And what you're doing here, this is a tile laying game, and you're trying to create sets of all of the same species and trying to cover up habitats in their entirety and covering up specific features in the habitat, like there's a river that goes through the board and there are hot springs you want to surround and waterfalls you want to cover up, but you have to do all this while trying to avoid the consequences of bad weather. So this is a really fun, relatively light, but fun, just thinky enough tile laying game. All right, and that was new to me in January. That one was new to me in January. Riverside, next up is Riverside. I know I saw it over here somewhere. Maybe. Here it is. Okay, so this is, I'm so not going to pronounce this right. This is a game by Asmund and Eilif Svensson with art by, who did the artwork? Artwork and graphic design by Geirmund Morkved Bone. I'm so probably not pronouncing that right. And published by Stronghold Games in the United States, at least. This is a roll and write game where you are taking boatloads of tourists along this river and stopping at various tourist spots along the river, sightseeing, right? So they can go fishing and watch wildlife. Can't remember all of the opportunities, but those are 2 of them. And you score points based on how many tourists you have in your boat, how many tickets they've bought for the different sightseeing opportunities along the banks of the river. So fun. This one plays in about 15 to 25 minutes, I believe that. That sounds about right. This is good both solo and at 2-player. And this one was published in 2021. Next up, we have one of my favorites, and this is Genotype, a Mendelian genetics game. This is a worker placement game and dice drafting game designed by John Covey, Paul Solomon, and Ian Zhang, with artwork by Tomasz Bogusz and Amelia Sales. So if you recall, Amelia Sales also did artwork for On the Origin of Species. Quite an accomplished artist, both of them that worked on this game. The artwork is stunning. It's a really fun worker placement game, and I think hasn't received as much attention as it should, probably because people see it and they see it's published by Genius Games and they think, oh, that's probably just educational, but it is so much more than that. Really fun game, has an excellent solo mode if you like playing solo games. Plays in about 45 to 75 minutes, which sounds about right. I think the solo game's about 45 minutes. 2 players, probably 45 minutes to an hour. But really fun game where you are basically following in the footsteps of Gregor Mendel, or perhaps helping him with his research in peas, where he figured out sort of the basics of how traits are inherited across generations. All right, and last up we have Trailblazer, the John Muir Trail. This one was new to me in February. Here it is. Oh, this is a heavy one. Okay. Oof. All right, Trailblazer, the John Muir Trail. Designed by Dan Rice III with artwork by Andrew Bosley. Beautiful artwork. This is one thing most of these games have in common, is the artwork is just stunning, right? And all of them very fun games. This one I've only played 1 time so far. Like I said, it was new to me in February. This is a worker placement and set collection game where you are hiking the John Muir Trail. And along the way, you've got to outfit your backpack with various items, gear that you would use along a hiking trip, and you have to expend food every day to keep yourself fed, and water, food and water. The only thing that they don't capture in here for hiking along the John Muir Trail is having to rest. You don't have to do that very often. But anyway, you're visiting various sort of side trips along the trail, seeing various sites, and beautiful game. So I can't really say too much more about it. I've only played it the one time. I've not yet played it solo. I just played it at 2 players. I did really enjoy it. I do want to play the solo game. So I'm back to this on Kickstarter, which does come with a solo automa. However, the retail version does not come with a solo automa, which I'm a little bit upset about, actually. So I can't feature the solo automa on the channel because I just think that would be not very nice, right? So what I'll probably do is, if it will fit on my little table, if I can make it fit on my little table, I will play a 2-handed game of this and have a video of it on the channel eventually. So that's Trailblazer, the John Muir Trail. Did I say who published it? I don't think I did. Mariposa Games. This is published by Mariposa Games. And this came out just last year in 2023. So that is all 14 games that I wanted to talk about that I played in January and February. If there are, so I've covered already on the channel Caldera Park, Genotype, and On the Origin of Species, and Keystone, North America. I'm not sure what I'm going to cover next, so if any of these sound good to you, that you would like to see on the channel sooner rather than later, they'll all eventually be on the channel probably. But if you'd rather see them sooner than later, please mention that in the comments, and I will prioritize that if you mention it. And it'll end up on the channel sooner than some of the other games. So that is all I have for you. I haven't decided whether to call this a February vlog or a March vlog, because it's covering games from February, but you're seeing it in March. So by the time this makes it up onto YouTube, it will have a name, but I'm not sure what that name's going to be. So if you have thoughts about that, let me know it in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!